Hi everyone, I'm Sleepless Scientist tonight. We're slipping out of time. Not forward, but backward, way backward. You're standing in a clearing, barefoot in cool grass. The sky above is darker than anything you've seen in your city. No buzzing streetlights, no airplane trails, no satellite blinking. Just stars. So many stars you forget how to count. They aren't twinkling politely, they're blazing. Venus is terrifyingly bright.
The Milky Way cuts a glittering river across the sky, thicker and stranger than you've ever noticed. If you saw it today, you'd swear someone painted it. It's Earth, 300,000 years ago. And you, yes, you wouldn't last 5 minutes. Too soft, too clean, too used to pajamas and climate control. Sorry, but that's okay, you're just visiting. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you. Let me know in the comments below. I'm always curious where these quiet little science stories are drifting to, and if this video helped you while you were there. Now relax, take a deep breath, and join me gently on this evening's journey. Your feet move slowly across uneven dirt. The wind smells like moss rain and something animal. No highways, no rooftops, no distant hum of power lines. The earth here doesn't just feel quiet, it feels alive, like it's breathing under your feet. And above you, the sky is not just dark, it's the dark. The kind of black that makes your pupils stretch wide and your instincts itch. You lie down. The stars look close, so close they could drip. You can feel their cold light on your cheeks.
The constellations, they're familiar, but off. The wobble of Earth's axis, what science calls axial precession, shifts star positions over time. So Polaris wasn't always the North Star. 300 millennia ago, your night sky map is tilted, scribbled wrong. Orion still hunts, but badly. The stars are in places that would confuse your app. And here's the thing though, it's pollution. It didn't exist. The only lights were fire and moon, and sometimes glowing bugs. Cities today radiate so much brightness you can't see more than a few dozen stars. But here, 300,000 years ago, your eyes could feast on thousands. Stargazing wasn't just a hobby, it was survival. Your ancestors tracked seasons, migrations, even moods by the heavens. Sleep, too, was ruled by that cosmic glitter. Imagine being able to tell time by the sharpness of the moon's shadow. Imagine waking before sunrise, not because of an alarm, but because a meteor whispered across the sky. And now, here's a weird one. Insects back then, bigger. Thanks to higher oxygen levels in earlier epochs, dragonflies once had wingspans as wide as hawks. Though by 300,000 years ago, most had shrunk, some bugs still glimmered like coins in the firelight. Fireflies, maybe, or some bioluminescent fungus, making the logs glow faintly green. Scientists still debate how widespread natural light sources like this were, but if they were here, they made the world gently shimmer at night. You'd think this would be comforting, but not really. It's a wild dark, a loud dark. Night isn't quiet, it never was. Wolves howl, crickets chirp, the distant roar of something large and not vegetarian. Your brain doesn't calm down. It perks up, because night means danger. You adjust your limbs. The ground is uneven. You're not in a bed. Remember, no mattress, no memory foam. Just dirt, maybe leaves if you're lucky. Roots push into your back. A slug glides by your fingers. You flinch.
There's something too rhythmic in the distance. It could be thunder or footsteps. You'll never know. Sleep back then wasn't a luxury, it was a gamble. You couldn't just drift off. You had to manage it, share watch shifts, sleep in groups, nestle against warm bodies, both for heat and security. Even the earliest humans, Homo heidelbergensis, likely developed communal sleeping practices for survival.
Some scientists think our modern sleep problems, insomnia, hypersensitivity, sleep paralysis, are leftovers from that long evolutionary anxiety. But now, oddly, you feel calmer. Something in you, ancient and soft, recognizes this rhythm. The hum of insects, the occasional snort of a deer, the far-off, ragged breathing of a hunting cat, and the stars above, always the stars. People today have tried to simulate this sky. Astronomers call these places dark sky reserves.
There are fewer than 200 on Earth. They let you see what ancient people always saw. Without those reference points, those galactic dots, we're a little lost. Your brain craves it, even if you don't realize it. By the way, one fun fact to keep in your back pocket: crocodiles are older than all of this. They've been watching the stars way longer than you. Some early humans may have used crushed crocodile dung as mosquito repellent. Sleep science's first fragrance, unclear, and incredibly gross. Now you blink slowly. The air's gotten colder, a little damp. You wish you had socks. You don't, but you do have this sky. You have the wind on your neck and a thin whisper of breath, rising and falling around you, your own. Or maybe someone sleeping nearby. It's not safe, but it is beautiful. And as your heartbeat slows, you realize this planet, this Earth, it wasn't always ours. We were visitors here too.
You step quietly through thick undergrowth, pushing aside a fern as tall as your chest. A soft mist clings to the leaves and your skin. You inhale, and the air smells lush green, almost wet with scent. But you're not in the Amazon, not even close. You're in Europe. Well, what will one day be Europe? But 300,000 years ago, it was a different kind of continent entirely. One without cities, castles, or cosy French cafes. Instead, it was draped in dense forests, some subtropical, humid, and teeming with creatures you wouldn't believe. Picture Spain, covered in palm ferns. Germany, with swamps. Did the UK, for what it was, soggy and sun-drenched, with a climate that could sprout bananas if it really tried. It's a weird thing to picture Europe, the birthplace of cathedrals and heavy coats, once looking like a cross between a greenhouse and a dinosaur movie set. But that's what warmer interglacial periods did. When ice sheets retreated, the land responded, plants surged, lakes swelled, and animals followed. You crouch low, now brushing a vine from your leg. You've just heard something big. You freeze, and then you see it. Not a dinosaur, sorry. Wrong timeline, but close. A straight-tusked elephant, easily 4 meters tall, crashes through the trees nearby. Its tusks curve outward like twin sabers, polished and ivory white. These elephants were the dominant giants of the forests here, rivaling mammoths in size, but preferring warmer woods to open tundra. They lived alongside wild horses, aurochs, and even rhinos. Woolly ones, yes, but also forest rhinos with smoother hides. Scientists still debate which species moved through which valleys, but the fossils suggest a traffic jam of megafauna. Your heartbeat quickens. You step backward quietly. Too bad you step straight into something squishy. It's fruit, probably some wild fig or berry that's long extinct. One of thousands of plant species lost as climates shifted, never to be catalogued. What did it taste like? No one knows. You just ruined your chance of being the first to know. Congrats. The forest floor is alive, by the way. Under your feet, thousands of mushrooms and tiny microbes exchange signals in what scientists now call the Wood Wide Web, a network of fungi that connects roots and helps trees communicate. A young tree in the shade might get sugars delivered from its elder neighbours via this network, like forest DoorDash. Did this system exist in this very grove 300,000 years ago? Possibly. Fungi are ancient and patient. You walk again, pushing past dripping vines and leaves the size of blankets. The sounds are layered, buzzing insects, distant chirps, and something that might be a proto-squirrel screaming at a bird. Nature doesn't do silence. The European forest back then was a full-spectrum concert of snaps, squeaks, growls and flaps. And now, because sleep science always finds a way to sneak in, imagine trying to sleep in this jungle. Your brain, already trained to fear branches, snapping in the dark, would go nuts here. There's just too much going on. The soundscape alone is enough to keep your cortisol flowing, like espresso.
Modern humans struggle to sleep in urban noise. Yet we forget that our ancestors also dealt with auditory chaos, just different chaos. Less traffic, more trampling hooves. Odd fact of the night, some large European tortoises still lived here back then. Yes, tortoises in Germany. And they likely snored. Well, okay, breathed heavily. That counts when you're trying to sleep next to one. You stop at a clearing now. Sunlight cuts through a hole in the canopy. You feel warm suddenly.
But not in a cozy blanket way. In a you're being watched kind of way. Something flickers at the tree line. You don't know what it is. Could be a cave lion. Could be an early human. Could be both. Either way, the message is clear, and don't stay here long. This jungle has rules, and you're not part of the ecosystem. Before you leave, you spot something glinting near a tree stump. It's a claw. Big, curved, chipped. Possibly from a giant hyena, a real beast back then twice the size of modern ones. They hunted in packs and cracked bones like pretzels. Scientists still debate how often they clashed with early humans, but some skulls say often enough. You back away, carefully. The sun is starting to dip, casting the forest in a golden green light that feels less Disney and more doom. Evening in the ancient forest isn't gentle. It's a shift change. Day animals hush. Night ones stir. Eyes open. Wings twitch.
Somewhere, an owl thing you don't recognize blinks its sideways eyelids and swivels toward you. You head for the edge of the woods. Fast. You break through the trees and find yourself on a ridge overlooking a wide river valley. The air smells cleaner. You breathe deeply. The sky is turning colours again, pink indigo rust. Soon, stars will return, unbothered by clouds or pollution. And you feel something odd. Homesick, but not for your own bed. For this raw, breathing, chaotic version of Earth, even though you wouldn't survive 5 days in it. You sit, watch the stars emerge again, and you wonder, if the forest slept, what would it dream of? You're still on the ridge, but now the stars are back. Only this time, you're watching them move. Not fast, not dramatically, but just enough that you feel it. Because here's something strange. Earth doesn't just spin. It also wobbles, like a tired top slightly off balance, staggering in slow motion. This wobble, called axial precession, takes about 26,000 years to complete a single sway. Which means that the stars you saw last night, they're not quite in the same place tonight. Not if you stretch time like a rubber band. You lie down again on the rocky soil and stare up. The sky looks eternal, but it's not. Everything's moving, just glacially slowly. The North Star changes every few millennia. The tilt of Earth shifts slightly. And this means everything about time changes subtly. Daylight hours, climate patterns, even, believe it or not, your sleep cycles.
You see, Earth isn't just orbiting the Sun in some static, obedient path. It wobbles, it tilts, it hiccups. And because of this, ancient seasons weren't exactly predictable. Some winters were long and dry, others were wet and confusing.
There were times like now, 300,000 years ago, when glaciers were retreating, climates softening, and nights either stretching forever or barely arriving at all, depending on your latitude. This wasn't just an astronomical curiosity. For early humans, it meant that their very biological clocks were in flux. Melatonin, the sleepy hormone triggered by darkness, had to work overtime or under impossible conditions. There were nights that went on for weeks in some regions,
and days that never quite ended. You ever try to sleep during a polar summer? Imagine doing that with no blackout curtains, no walls, and a stomach that's never quite full. Your internal rhythm, the circadian cycle, is tuned to light. But when the Earth's rhythm plays jazz instead of a steady beat, your body learns to improvise. Some scientists argue this is why human sleep remains so malleable. Why we can shift schedules, pull all-nighters, or fall asleep during afternoon train rides.
Our ancestors had no choice but to adapt to Earth's unpredictability. Still imagine trying to tell time without clocks. You'd rely on stars, shadows, temperature, maybe the yawns of the elders in your tribe. When old Rai yawns 3 times, we sleep. Speaking of Rai, let's say he's one of your group's elders. He sleeps near the fire, but wakes often. His sleep is segmented like yours. Historians and anthropologists now believe that monophasic sleep, 8 uninterrupted hours, is a modern invention. Back then, Rai probably slept in 2 main chunks, with a few hours of wakefulness in the middle. Time to talk, eat a cold root, or just stare at the stars again. They called it the watch. You might call it midnight doom scrolling, but with fewer memes and more mammoth sounds. And here's a random but oddly soothing fact: trees can sleep too. Sort of.
Time-lapse studies have shown that some trees let their branches droop slightly at night, almost like they're relaxing. Scientists still debate whether this is true sleep or just a passive reaction to losing sunlight. But it's poetic to think that around you, even the trees were nodding off. You shift your position now, rolling onto your side. A rock presses into your hip. There's no soft bed here, just stone warmed slightly by the day's sun. Your back cracks softly, not from age.
From the fact that here you've walked all day. Your ancestors didn't get 10,000 steps. They got 30,000 every day, in bare feet or something close to it. No wonder sleep came fast when it finally came. But the Earth never really sleeps. It rests sometimes, but deep beneath your body, tectonic plates move. Molten rock bubbles. Pressure builds. You're lying on a living turning engine. And now high above the moon has appeared. Full. Bright enough to cast shadows. Too bright, maybe. In the ancient world, sleep was never quite the same during full moons. Melatonin production can dip when there's too much nightlight. And our ancestors noticed. Some slept poorly under a full moon. Others used it to hunt or migrate. You've probably felt it too, those restless nights when something feels off. That's not just folklore. That's your body reacting to the moon's glow, passed down like genetic wallpaper. You close your eyes briefly. The wind shifts. There's a scent of something warm, maybe sap or roasted root. Someone nearby is still awake. Someone always is. You hear a whispered laugh, maybe 2, a moment of peace, and then boom. A distant rumble, not thunder, a volcano perhaps. Far off but present. Some supervolcanoes, like the one under modern-day Italy, had begun stirring during this period. They hadn't erupted yet, but the pressure was building. These ticking time bombs shaped the land, the air, the skies.
When they did blow, ash could darken the skies for years. Sunlight dimmed, temperatures dropped, crops failed, if you had any to begin with. Volcanoes shaped not only climate, but sleep. When ash fell thick enough to block light, circadian cycles were thrown into chaos. Days felt like night. Bodies panicked. Scientists still debate how long-term volcanic winters may have changed our ancestors' health hormones and even behavior. You sit up a little more alert now.
That volcano may be far away, but the Earth is reminding you again that it's not passive, not safe, and certainly not still. You rub your eyes, yawn. The stars blur into a fuzzy net above you. There's no way to know what time it is, just that it's time enough. So you lie back down. Listen. Wait for sleep. It will come, eventually.
You wake to a sound you don't recognize. It's not mechanical, not electronic. It's ancient. A low growl so deep it could have come from the earth itself or from something with teeth the size of your fingers. You freeze. The fire's gone out. The sky's beginning to blue at the edges, but it's still mostly dark. And somewhere close, but not close enough to see something is moving through the underbrush, with far too much confidence. Welcome to the time of megafauna. Sleep lightly. This wasn't a planet of just bears and deer. This was a planet where every third animal looked like it had been designed by a child who'd recently discovered the concept of more. Take, for example, the short-faced bear, a giant predator that stood over 11 feet tall when it reared up. It was faster than a horse could crush bones in one bite, and probably snored loud enough to trigger avalanches. If you were lucky, you might only hear its distant huff in the night. If you were unlucky, well, let's not dwell. Then there were the hyena lions. Not a real hybrid, don't get too excited, but both lived during overlapping periods, and they were terrifying in their own unique ways. Cave lions, some larger than modern African lions, roamed in prides, and may have occasionally shared turf with packs of giant hyenas. The hyenas could break mammoth bones just for fun.
They had powerful shoulders, thick jaws, and the kind of laughter that didn't sound amusing at all in the dark. You pull the fur blanket, weight no blanket. Moss and hide may be closer around your shoulders. The truth is, sleeping here was a risky business. The forest wasn't quiet. The steppe wasn't quiet. Nowhere was quiet. And yet somehow people slept. Because they had to. They slept in clusters backs to each other, facing outward.
Watch shifts weren't optional. They were evolutionary reflexes. Someone stayed up, someone listened, someone poked the fire. Researchers now think that early human groups might have staggered their sleep to ensure at least one person was always semi-alert. It's even been observed in modern hunter-gatherer communities, something called asynchronous sleep patterns, which essentially means you nap while I panic. In a very real way, fear was the original bedtime story. And here's the ironic twist, those prehistoric beasts. They might have been less dangerous than your phone. Okay, not your phone specifically, but the blue light it emits, which tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime. Melatonin gets delayed. Sleep is shallow. You end up wide-eyed at 2 a.m. because a TikTok convinced you to eat raw garlic. Your ancestors didn't have that problem. Their danger was more immediate. A rustle, a snap,
the unmistakable stink of something big and carnivorous. That's the kind of alarm clock that gets your cortisol spiking. Which brings us to another bit of sleep science hypervigilance during sleep. Even today, people sleep differently in unfamiliar places, a phenomenon called the first night effect. One hemisphere of the brain stays more alert, as if it's standing guard. Sound familiar? That's probably because early humans invented it. Imagine sleeping in a cave on open plains, or inside a temporary shelter made from mammoth ribs. You couldn't afford 8 solid hours of deep sleep. That's how you got eaten. And let's not forget the giant sloths. Yes, sloths, but big, like jeep-sized. They weren't predators. They were vegetarians, but they were also loud. They grunted and stomped and smelled strange, and if one wandered too close to your shelter at night, you'd assume you were about to be flattened by some god-tier lizard. Scientists still debate whether humans hunted these sloths or just politely avoided them. Either way, they were part of your nightmares, and maybe your weird dreams too, because dreams didn't stop back then. In fact, they might have mattered more.
There's evidence, some interpretive, some artistic, that early humans used dreams to process danger, rehearse survival, even pass on stories. A successful hunt might be played again in the mind, rehearsed during REM. The scent of smoke, the sound of claws, the glint of eyeshine in the dark, these elements became motifs in the dream world. One early hypothesis even suggests that dreams helped encode spatial memory. In other words, if you dreamt of the path back to your cave, you might remember it better tomorrow. Now here's your oddball fact of the night: early humans might have smeared urine around their sleeping areas to mask their scent. Charming, right? Science is still sniffing out the details, but chemical camouflage isn't unheard of in the animal kingdom. Whether this worked on giant hyenas or just made them curious is unclear. Sleep science meets pea science.
But despite the dangers, there were moments like this one, when the sky turned pale lavender and the first bird sounds crept into the air. You watched the trees sway gently. No wind, just movement. Maybe that thing that woke you is gone, or maybe it was never there. And slowly your breathing returns to normal. You stretch your limbs. One foot aches from a thorn you stepped on yesterday. Your hip feels bruised from a rock. You miss pillows, but you feel alive, sharpened, tuned to every creak and shuffle around you. Because in this world, sleep wasn't disconnection. It was survival in slow motion. You shift, sigh, and pull your knees closer to your chest. It's almost morning, and you're still here. You're walking again, still barefoot, still tired. But the air is changing cooler now, sharper. You can smell it before you see it. Smoke. Not a raging fire, but something more deliberate. Controlled. Someone's made fire. And not for cooking, not yet. They're using it for something far more human. They're using it to sleep. You duck low behind a cluster of stones and peer across a clearing. They're nestled at the base of a rock outcrop. You spot them: early humans, maybe Homo heidelbergensis, sitting in a rough circle. Fire flickers in the center, spitting small embers into the air. They're wrapped in hides, eyes heavy. One rubs their face. Another scratches their scalp. Everyone looks like you feel ready to drop.
This right here is what communal sleep looked like. No beds, no bedrooms, just the fire and the tribe. If you wanted to survive the night, you stayed close, not just for warmth, but for safety, for trust, for sleep without being eaten. You inch closer and see how their camp is arranged. No tents, no privacy, just proximity. You sleep near who you trust. You keep the infants closest to the fire, the injured propped near someone with strong shoulders and good hearing. No one sleeps deeply unless someone else stays awake. And here's the science: fire changed everything. Before, fire sleep was likely brief and shallow. But once humans began mastering flames, sleep became deeper. Fire let them extend the night artificially. Sit, talk, share stories. It kept predators at bay. Most animals hate firelight. And it let people feel, maybe for the first time, that the dark wasn't always dangerous. But the irony, fire doesn't help sleep directly. It's not like a cave person melatonin pill. What fire really did was let us gather. And when we gathered, we felt safe. And when we felt safe, we dared to sleep. Scientists have actually studied the effect of firelight on modern sleep patterns. A 2017 study found that people exposed to firelight flicker at night, not electric light, not blue light, experienced improved sleep quality. Why? Because firelight mimics the natural orange-red wavelength of sunset. It tells your brain, hey, it's time to wind down. Compare that to your phone's brutal blue glare, which tells your brain, let's stay up and reinvent your personality at 2 a.m. Now back to the camp. One of the humans is slumped over, snoring softly. Another pokes the fire with a stick. Sparks fly. A child babbles in sleep eyes twitching under heavy lids. REM sleep, maybe. Even here, 300,000 years ago, the sleep cycle had stages like deep dreaming.
The architecture of human sleep was already forming, shaped by biology and the night. You move closer now. Step into the flickering circle. They don't see you, they can't. You're only observing. But you feel it, the warmth, the intimacy, the need to rest, without dying. And then a log pops, loudly. The one poking the fire jerks upright. Their head snaps toward the noise. A long pause. Nothing moves. And then they relax again. That right there, that's sleep, with one eye open. Even today, many people, especially in high alert environments, sleep in lighter stages. First responders, new parents, trauma survivors. They all know what it's like to lie still, but never fully slip under. It's in our wiring. An ancestral gift or curse. You settle by the fire too now, figuratively, and notice something odd. The stars are gone, not covered by clouds, just lost in the orange haze of smoke and flame. Fire gave us safety, but it also gave us light pollution, albeit prehistoric and flickering. And here's your fun fact. Smoke from these fires likely played a role in shaping early nasal anatomy. No joke. Constant exposure to smoke may have led to adaptations in nasal passages over time. Scientists still debate whether this was due to climate or cooking, but it's one more reminder that everything about our ancestors' environment moulded their biology, even how they breathed in their sleep. You hear another sound now singing. It's low, more of a chant than a song. One voice, then two. Maybe it's a lullaby. Maybe it's ritual. Maybe it's boredom. You'll never know the lyrics, but you feel the rhythm. A pulse that slows your heart, just listening to it. This is what passed for a bedtime story. No books, no podcasts. Just the crackle of fire, the breath of nearby lungs, and the occasional haunting melody offered up to the stars, or whatever watched beyond them. And if you're wondering, yes, nightmares existed too. Even here, even now, someone stirs in their sleep. Twitches, whimpers. Maybe they're dreaming of falling, of losing the group, of being watched by yellow eyes in the bush. Modern theories suggest nightmares evolved as threat rehearsals practice for danger played out in REM. A test drive for survival. It worked. We're here. We made it. You shift your body and for a moment, you feel it. That prehistoric sleep, not a delicate glass bubble to be shattered by a ping, but a heavy necessary drift into unconsciousness that heals the body and sharpens the mind for what tomorrow brings. One of the humans by the fire rolls over. Another mumbles something and falls silent again. And slowly you feel yourself getting sleepy too, because it's contagious, this kind of sleep. Not from exhaustion, from permission. The fire crackles. The sky brightens slightly. You close your eyes, let your breath slow, and for just a moment, 300,000 years fall away. You don't remember falling asleep, but now you're awake again and the ground is shaking. Not violently, not yet. Just enough that your teeth hum in your skull and your fingertips pick up a low, invisible rhythm, like a drumbeat under your bones. The earth is breathing, but not gently. You sit up. The air smells like sulfur and hot stone. And in the distance, a faint glowing bruise on the horizon. It's a volcano. Maybe not erupting yet, but awake. You're about to learn something. Earth has its own sleep cycle, and sometimes it has nightmares. Let's talk about supervolcanoes. Around 300,000 years ago, the planet had several of these ticking geological time bombs. Massive volcanic systems that didn't just spit lava, they altered climates. One of the biggest threats at the time was the Campi Flegrei caldera near what's now Naples, Italy. Even back then, it might have been grumbling beneath the feet of early humans. You wouldn't have had the words to describe it, but you would have felt it. Rumblings in the ground, strange patterns in animal behavior, or a sudden quietness in the forest that felt wrong. And when one of these beasts finally erupted, it wasn't a local event. It was global. A true super eruption could launch so much ash and gas into the atmosphere that the sun would dim for years. Global temperatures would drop. Crops, if you had any, would fail. Food chains would buckle. Sleep, of course, would spiral. Because darkness doesn't always bring rest. Prolonged ash cover would create an eerie, endless twilight. And our brains, tuned to light cues for millennia, would panic. Melatonin production would get confused. Cortisol levels would rise. The line between night and day would blur. You know that weird, disoriented feeling you get after staying indoors too long, without windows. Multiply that by a decade. Now imagine it's happening to everyone, all at once. Scientists still debate just how long these volcanic winters lasted, but they agree on this. They left deep marks on the landscape and the species that survived them. You stand slowly brushing ash from your shoulder. There's a warmth in the air that doesn't belong to the sun. And it's not comforting. It's the kind of warmth that makes plants wilt and birds go silent. Yet somehow, humans kept going. One theory, we adapted not just physically, but psychologically.
The stress of a shifting environment may have rewired our ancestors' brains for resilience, increased vigilance, better group cooperation, more flexible sleep strategies. Modern humans can sleep in buses, planes, trenches and bunkers. That ability to grab rest amid chaos that might have started right here in a world lit by fire and choked by ash. Let's take a moment now to visit a cave, a refuge. You duck through a narrow entrance crawl into damp silence. The temperature drops.
Walls glisten. The sound of the wind fades behind you. Here you find marks, scratches, patterns, possibly even early art. Not masterpieces, but intention. Someone lived here. Someone slept here. Caves were natural shelters against volcanoes, storms and predators. But they were also acoustic chambers. Sound behaves strangely underground. It echoes, circles, amplifies. Imagine lying on cold stone, drifting to sleep, to the soft hum of someone's breath, and the thunder of a distant volcano warped by stone. into a ghostly moan. Odd fact, some early humans may have chosen sleeping spots based on the acoustics of the cave. Not for music, for safety. If you could hear a hyena's growl from deep inside, you had warning. Modern archaeologists test ancient cave acoustics by shouting and measuring reverberations. It's science, but also kind of a prehistoric sound check. And here's a weird thought. Maybe our love of white noise today fans rain. Sound's ocean loops started with caves. A low, predictable rumble made sleep possible when the world outside was anything but. You close your eyes now inside this stone chamber, and the air feels thicker, safer, but not totally, because the volcano is still out there, breathing, building. Sleep, when it comes, is brief, fitful. You dream of red skies and falling ash, and when you wake again, the world smells burned. The plants outside are covered in grey powder. The birds are gone. The light is dull. Not night, not day, something in between. This is what scientists call a volcanic twilight, a phase when the sky is stained strange colours and the world feels paused. But even in this strange poisoned dawn, something stirs. A child steps from the cave, rubbing their eyes. They yawn. Even after the end of the world, we still yawn.
Because even the earth, in all its fire and fury, eventually cools, settles, sleeps again. And we stubborn little mammals curl up somewhere warm and try to dream through the end of days.
The sun returns slowly. You feel it before you see it, warmth on your cheek, the sting of light through tired eyes. But something's off. You blink, sit up, and realise it's not the sun. It's the moon, hanging low, massive, so close it looks like it's breathing with you. This was your ancestors' sleep lamp, their nightlight, their clock, their calendar, and also their disruptor. Because as gentle as it looks from here, the moon has been quietly messing with human sleep since long before anyone had blackout curtains. Even 300,000 years ago, early humans felt the tug of lunar light on their rest. Without electric lighting or heavy drapes, the full moon's glow spilled across every sleeping surface. In open fields or cave mouths, it shone directly into closed eyelids. And while that might seem minor, modern science says otherwise.
Studies today show that during full moons, people tend to take longer to fall asleep, sleep less overall, and experience lighter sleep. Melatonin levels drop. Deep sleep is shorter, and no one's entirely sure why. Scientists still debate whether this lunar influence is evolutionary or purely environmental. Were our ancestors more active during full moons? Did predators hunt more in brighter light? Did our own brains learn to stay slightly more alert under that pale glow? You stand and stretch, watching your shadow dance under moonlight. It's beautiful, and also annoying, because even now part of your brain won't shut off. It knows this light means exposure, visibility. You could be seen, you could be found.
And if you were an early human trying to survive the night, that flickering fear would be enough to shave an hour or two off your sleep cycle. But then you turn and see something soft, a fire still burning, low, gentle, like a heartbeat. Around it, a family, not by blood, but by necessity. Men, women, elders, children, all curled together, backs touching limbs tangled, one snoring lightly, one murmuring in sleep. It's as if the moonlight can't reach inside that circle.
You sit near the edge, just watching, and you realise this isn't just about survival. This is about trust. Sleeping next to someone letting down your guard, it's one of the most vulnerable things a human can do. And these early people did it night after night, even knowing what prowled in the dark. You look around, the trees are still, no rustling, no howls, but the moonlight catches on something shiny nearby. You creep closer and see, not an artifact, not a weapon.
A line of stones carefully arranged. It looks intentional. Maybe a marker, maybe a ritual, or maybe just something to do during that strange moonlit wakefulness. Historians call it the midnight watch. Because here's the thing our ancestors didn't sleep in one long stretch. Most likely they followed a pattern of biphasic sleep, two main chunks, with a wakeful hour or two in between. What did they do during that time? Well talk, tend fire, whisper, stare at the stars, meditate,
Arrange stones, and probably pee. In fact, some anthropologists argue that those moonlit hours were the time for storytelling, intimacy, and reflection. That sliver of night when no one hunted and no one slept. Just a quiet middle space where dreams blurred with reality and minds wandered. Sounds peaceful, doesn't it? You lie back again. The moon is higher now. The fire is lower. The people around you stir slightly, murmuring in that strange shared language that predates anything written.
It's warm here. The wind skips past you and keeps going. You close your eyes, and then you hear it, a distant hoot. Not an owl, not quite. A proto-bird, maybe. Something caught between dinosaur and feather, singing to the moon. Odd fact, there's evidence that some ancient birds, early avians, might have had night songs specifically for mating or territory. These weren't random chirps. They were moonlit areas. Imagine trying to sleep through that opera with no earbuds.
But then again, maybe you wouldn't want to. Because under this moon, in this moment, you feel something modern life rarely gives you alignment. The rhythm of your body syncs with the firelight, the moonlight, the quiet breath of others. No clocks, no deadlines. Just this. You won't get 8 hours. Not here. But you'll get what your ancestors got. Enough. Enough to dream. Enough to survive. Enough to wake up and do it all again tomorrow. You wake up to the sound of dripping water. Not rain. It's more rhythmic. More echoey. You open your eyes and realize you're underground. A cave. It's colder here and darker, so dark that even the moon can't reach you. But the air feels alive. It hums gently like a cathedral made of stone. And then you notice the walls. They're not blank. There are markings faint, but there. A smear of red ochre. A line that loops. A handprint, fingers splayed. Someone was here before you. Someone who felt the need to leave something behind.
Maybe not a message, but a whisper. You're in a prehistoric sleep chamber, but also an art gallery. And that's where the weird overlap begins. Because caves weren't just shelters. They were places where sleep safety and something deeper coexisted. A kind of proto-ritual space where rest met meaning. You settle back against the rock. It's hard, cold, but not uncomfortable somehow. The deeper you go, the more silent the world becomes. Your own breathing becomes the loudest thing in the room. And then you notice the acoustics. You hum softly. Just a little note. It bounces back at you, distorted, deeper, a little eerie. That's not an accident. Researchers have found that many prehistoric paintings appear in spots within caves that have unique acoustic properties. In other words, people may have painted where the sound echoed best. Did they sing in these spots, whisper stories, perform nighttime rituals, with the flicker of firelight dancing on painted mammoths? Scientists still debate what these spaces were for.
but the connection between sound sleep and storytelling seems older than we can trace. Imagine lying in the dark, staring at flickering animals on stone, listening to a low voice chant a story about how the stars were made. That's not just history. That's human. You know that feeling. And then there's the matter of dreams. The early humans who slept in these caves likely didn't separate dreams from waking life the way we do. A dream of a hunt gone wrong might mean you change your route tomorrow. A dream of fire might inspire a real one. Some theories suggest that early shamans or spiritual leaders interpreted dreams not as fiction, but as a form of truth delivered by the cave, by the spirits, by something just outside of visibility. Even now, in this darkness, you feel that pull. Like your thoughts aren't entirely your own. Like the cave itself remembers every breath, every footstep, every word whispered in fear or awe. But also, let's be honest, this place smells weird. A mixture of damp rock bat droppings and whatever someone last ate. Probably raw root. Possibly hedgehog. Fun and slightly gross fact, prehistoric humans may have used crushed bone ash and animal fat to make pigments.
And some of that paint was made and used in complete darkness, with no natural light, just fire, or sometimes no light at all. They weren't painting to be seen, they were painting to be remembered. And all this, you realise, happened in the same place they slept. We tend to separate things now, bedrooms over here, studios over there. But 300,000 years ago, there was no separation. Where you slept was where you worked, ate, gave birth, told stories, and mourned the dead.
You hear something behind you, not threatening, just the shuffle of someone else rising in the dark. A child, maybe, who had a bad dream, or a hunter waking early. They don't speak. They just walk past a quiet silhouette, disappearing into deeper shadow. And now you hear it, the heartbeat of the cave. Drip, drip, drip. That slow, endless rhythm of water on stone. A sleep soundtrack that predates every white noise machine. You let your head rest against the wall. It's cold, smooth. You trace a faint line with your finger, someone else's mark left centuries before language. And just as you start to doze again, something odd happens. A glimmer. It's not fire. It's not moonlight. It's the rock itself glowing faintly green. You blink, look closer, and yep, it's real. Certain types of bioluminescent fungus can glow in dark, damp environments.
Scientists still debate how widespread this was in prehistoric caves, but if it happened here, well, your ancestors may have seen their dreams cast in gentle green light. It's eerie, but kind of beautiful. A nightlight born of spores. And as you drift, you realise this is why caves mattered. Not just for shelter, but because they were wombs of memory, places that held echoes and flickers and dreams, where sound curled in on itself, where darkness pressed like a blanket, where the past literally clung to the walls. You yawn, it echoes, you smile. You're not alone in here, not really. Thousands of years of sleepers have exhaled in this same space. And tonight, it's your turn. You step out of the cave and immediately regret it. It's humid, sticky, the kind of air that clings to your skin and makes your hair do weird things. You blink against the light early morning haze curling across a wide open plain. But not just any plain, a river system, massive,
alive, and moving. Not in the metaphorical sense like, oh, the river moves me emotionally. No, this thing moves. The riverbed you're standing on today, it might not exist next year, or even next week, because 300,000 years ago, rivers were wild, unchanneled, uncontrolled. No dams, No levees, no polite concrete banks. Just vast muddy serpents snaking across the land, flooding here, drying up there, and most inconveniently relocating themselves like bored house guests. You follow the curve of one such river, now keeping a cautious eye on the crocodile-shaped shadows that might be logs. The water is brown, loud, frothy. It pulses with life. And mosquitoes. Lots of mosquitoes. This isn't just a setting. This is a problem for early humans trying to sleep.
Because what happens when the land you set camp on yesterday is underwater today? What happens when your perfectly smooth, river-cooled, sleeping rock is suddenly the neighborhood swimming pool for a herd of confused hippos? You adapt. You learn to read the signs where reeds bend, where insects gather, how frogs sing when water rises. Sleep, once again, becomes a moving target, something you have to catch, when you can, where you can.
And here's a weird fact to sprinkle into your dreams tonight. Back then, some ancient rivers in Africa and Eurasia were so large and volatile that scientists call them megafans. River systems that spread like fingers, shifting across hundreds of kilometers over time. They walked across the land like slow, wet ghosts. Whole groups of early humans may have been forced to migrate every few years, just to keep up. And yet somehow they kept sleeping. Sometimes near riverbanks.
Sometimes on high ground, sometimes curled in shallow hollows dug by hand, ringed with stones to keep the snakes out. You know, the usual. You stop now near a bend in the water. There's a strange sound coming from the other side, a kind of croak, but deeper, throaty, unsettling. You squat, listen, and then you see it a giant frog. No joke. It's about the size of a terrier, possibly a descendant of earlier, even larger amphibians that once ruled freshwater ecosystems.
Scientists still debate how big some of these frogs actually got, but fossils suggest there were prehistoric frogs capable of eating small mammals. That's right. Somewhere in your ancient family tree, there's a possibility that one of your great, many times great uncles got nibbled on by a frog. The river, of course, doesn't care. It just keeps flowing, reshaping the land, dragging tree trunks and dreams along with it.
And you sticky, dusty, bitten by things you can't name, need sleep. But where there's no cave here, no safe overhang, just tall grass and the distant chatter of birds arguing about something serious. So you do what your ancestors did. You dig a shallow trench just deep enough to hide in. You line it with grass stomped flat and face your back to the water. This is about an angle you want to feel the vibrations if something big approaches. You lie down.
Try to ignore the ant that just explored your neck. And slowly your body starts to let go. Because even in this shifting, soggy landscape, sleep still arrives. It always finds a way. Evolution demands it. Your immune system needs it. Your brain needs it to consolidate memories. Even your vestibular system, that little set of bones in your inner ear, uses sleep to recalibrate your sense of balance. Handy when the ground underneath you is trying to leave. And just as you're about to drift off, something cold touches your foot. You bolt upright. It's water. The river's risen just slightly. But it's a reminder. The land is temporary. So is the comfort. So is the moment. And yet, humans didn't go extinct. We learned to sleep in motion, in rain, in fear, on rafts, on mud, on each other. There's a theory among sleep researchers that variability is a feature of our species, that we're not meant to sleep in just one way in one place, or even in one block. That flexibility, the ability to nap in daylight, to doze sitting upright, to dream through thunder, is why we made it. You climb a nearby hill, now looking for higher ground. The river stretches out below, shining like a giant snake under the sun. Somewhere out there, a family is already on the move, packing hides, wiping sleep from eyes, carrying children, following the sound of water. And tonight they'll do it again. They'll find a new spot, a better patch of earth, and sleep. Because no matter how much the world moves, so do we. You're walking again, high ground now drier, safer. The river is a silver ribbon behind you, whispering farewell. Up ahead, the land opens into a wide field of grass and scattered shrubs. No cliffs, no caves, no cover. You stop, and suddenly it hits you. Silence. Not the soothing kind. Not the library and cup of tea kind. No, this is the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. The kind that feels too big, like the planet just inhaled and forgot to exhale. You sit in the grass blinking, waiting, listening, and then it dawns on you. There are no birds, no morning chirps, no midday trills, no rustling flutters of wings overhead. Which makes sense because modern birds, as we know them, didn't fully exist yet. Some had emerged from their dinosaur ancestry, yes, but their songs, their social chatter, their irritating yet weirdly comforting squawking at 5 a.m. Not here, not yet. Instead, the air was filled with other things. You hear a distant hum, some kind of insect choir, buzzing in unison. Closer by, a low clicking from under a bush, like something debating whether or not to bite you. And then a slow nasal groan, like someone dragging a cello across gravel. It's not music, but it is sound. This was the dawn chorus before birds. Before robins and wrens and woodpeckers invented their melodies, Earth's mornings sounded very different. Deeper, stranger, more alien. And for humans trying to sleep or wake up, it created a completely different soundscape. Today, birdsong is one of the most commonly used sleep aids. You can buy apps, playlists, even pillows that pipe in gentle forest chirps. But back then, sleep was wrapped in the rustle of mammoths, the squeals of boars, and the dry, rhythmic sawing of bug wings vibrating in the grass. It wasn't soothing, but it was predictable, which mattered more. You lie down, ear pressed to the ground. You can feel the life moving under the soil. Beetles, worms, roots growing so slowly you'd miss it in a lifetime, but still it's motion. Earth isn't still even when it looks that way. And now you hear something overhead. A flapping. Big, heavy. You glance up and spot a giant, stork-like bird, maybe Leptoptilos falconeri, an extinct species with a wingspan up to 16 feet. It glides silently, scanning the ground, possibly hunting, possibly just commuting. You wonder what it sounded like. Did it call to others? Did it shriek? Did it hum? Scientists still debate what kinds of vocalizations these proto-birds made. Some may have been mute. Others might have had calls that resembled today's herons, strange, guttural, and totally not helpful for sleep. But it's not just what's missing, it's what was there instead. Prehistoric mammals, for example, made noise you wouldn't recognize. Some had deep, resonant bellows. Others had click language. And some, like ancient rodents or shrews, emitted ultrasonic squeak sounds that only young ears, or very unlucky ones, could detect. You shift onto your back arms, splayed, and feel the vibration of hoofbeats in the distance. A herd, maybe. You don't even look. You just know, because this is the paradox of prehistoric sleep. You had to relax just enough to recover, but stay alert enough to run. Every night was a performance of partial surrender. The grass tickles your legs. The wind brings the scent of wild onion and something musky. Possibly a nearby animal. Possibly someone who hasn't bathed in a week. Possibly you. Now, here's your strange fact for the hour. Some early humans may have used insect legs as musical instruments. No, really. Carved bones with holes like flutes have been found with grooves suggesting they were played alongside the sounds of insects. What does this mean for sleep? Well, some anthropologists argue that ritual noise may have been used to drive off predators or to mark the beginning of sleep time. A prehistoric lullaby. A way to signal we're here. We're together.
It's safe enough now. You look around. Still no birds. Just the wind and your own heartbeat and the rustle of grasses in soft waves. You close your eyes and imagine what it must have felt like for your ancestors sleeping in a world that never really quieted, only changed its frequencies. Because silence didn't exist the way we think it does. Even in this birdless dawn, sound was always present. Just stranger. You roll onto your side. It's getting warmer. Time to move again. But part of you wants to stay. To listen a little longer to the forgotten voices of a planet before songbirds. A time when sound was survival. And sleep. Sleep was the gap between groans and buzzes. You stand, stretch, and feel your bones pop. Another day. Another strange, wild, sleep-deprived step forward. The air is heavier now. Not with heat, but with something else. Presence. You're not alone out here, and not just because the mammoths are stomping somewhere off in the distance again. You feel watched. Not by predators. Not by the wind. By someone like you. You scan the horizon, and then just like that you spot them. A group. Small. Moving low across the plain. But different. Their limbs are thick. Powerful. Their brows slope. Their bodies are stockier, built for cold. Their skin is darker, more weathered. Their eyes meet yours briefly and then move on. You've just seen your ancient cousins, Neanderthals. They weren't just grunting cave dwellers with clubs and bad posture. They were people, complex, sensitive, maybe even poetic. And they dreamed just like you. Modern neuroscience is pretty confident that REM sleep is universal in mammals, especially in species with large brains and social behaviour. Neanderthals had both. Their brains were actually larger than yours on average, especially the parts associated with vision and control of the body, which means they probably dreamed vividly about what that we'll never know. But if you've ever dreamed about being chased, being cold, losing someone, finding something, or staring into firelight with questions too big for words, you've probably dreamed something they once did too. You approach slowly, not to scare them, just to witness. They're building a kind of shelter low, with mammoth bones curved to form an arch. Inside, soft grasses and hides. A bed, a nest, a home. You crouch a safe distance away and watch a child curl up inside. The others murmur. A hand reaches out to stroke hair. And there it is again. Trust. Even in a world of tooth and claw and volcanoes and starvation, they made room for softness. Neanderthals likely had social sleep, just like other early humans. They likely slept in groups, rotated shifts, built fire-safe areas inside cave mouths, or constructed wind shelters when caves weren't available. Fossilized hearths and sleeping areas suggest routine, ritual, care. And here's a quietly haunting fact. We once thought Neanderthals were silent, that they lacked language. We were wrong. Their skulls contain the same hyoid bone, the tiny structure that supports speech sounds that modern humans have. Their genetic markers include FOXP2, a gene essential to language acquisition.
In other words, they probably spoke. Maybe not like Shakespeare, but enough to tell stories, to warn, to comfort, maybe even enough to sing. Some researchers speculate that Neanderthals may have used tonal communication, a kind of melodic proto-language, singing instead of speaking. And if that's true, then they may have invented lullabies long before modern Homo sapiens did.
Imagine it a mother Neanderthal singing low in the night while ash falls gently from a distant volcano and a fire crackles against the cold. A lullaby. It doesn't matter that we'll never hear it. It happened. And even if it didn't, we dreamed that it did. Which is just as human. You lie back again on the dry ground, folding your arms under your head, and look up. The stars are returning. And that triggers another thought. Did Neanderthals name the stars? Probably not. But did they stare at them? Almost certainly. Did they notice their patterns, their timing? The way some stars rose only in winter, these were people who buried their dead, who wore feathers, who made pigment, who might have had rituals around death and birth, and possibly even sleep. Some archaeologists argue that decorated bones and marked cave walls were tied to dream states, hypnagogic hallucinations, visions seen during that soft slide into sleep, when the mind untethers and floats sideways. Neanderthals like you may have blurred the line between dreams and waking life. And in a world this strange and beautiful, who could blame them? You close your eyes for just a second and the ground shifts. You're not in the grass anymore. You're inside their shelter now. One of them glances at you, curious but calm. You're not a threat. You're just tired. They hand you something, a soft, worn hide. You lie down beside them, and there's no judgment, no shock, just the silent understanding of shared exhaustion. Because in the end, everyone sleeps, even across species, even across time. And maybe, just maybe someone once dreamed you into being. You wake slowly, and it's cold, not chilly, not, oh, I should have worn socks cold. It's deep time cold, the kind that moves through your skin, settles into your bones, and makes your breath fog, even though the sun is technically up. The Ice Age is stretching its fingers again, and Earth is exhaling into another one of its long naps. You sit up shivering and notice frost on the grass, even though it's early autumn. The air is quiet, like the world is trying not to disturb itself. This is what scientists call a glacial cycle. Earth doesn't stay warm forever.
It pulses warm, cold, every 100,000 years or so. And the Ice Age you're starting to feel now, it didn't happen overnight. It crept, and you're stuck in the middle of the creeping. Imagine trying to sleep when the planet keeps turning the thermostat down by fractions of degrees per century. One year you're resting in grass. The next your breath freezes on your fur blanket. But humans, all kinds of humans, had to adapt. So did everything else.
You begin walking toward the tree line, but even the trees seem thinner, sparse, like the forest itself is pulling back, conserving energy, curling into itself. And yet some creatures thrive in the cold. A woolly rhinoceros rumbles past you in the distance, thick-furred, broad-backed, stomping through frost-covered grass like it owns the place. Which, to be fair, it kind of does.
You wouldn't want to cuddle one, but you can't help but admire the sheer evolutionary sass it takes to survive this kind of cold. But now imagine trying to sleep in it. Early humans had no electric heaters, no Gore-Tex, no thermal socks. Instead, they developed something better rhythm. When the world got colder, sleep itself changed. Some researchers believe humans may have naturally shifted into a kind of quasi-hibernation pattern during colder periods. Not full hibernation like bears, but longer nights of rest, more fragmented sleep, and more time huddled in place. The days got shorter, so the body followed. More darkness, more melatonin, more sleep pressure. And here's where it gets weird. Long sleep isn't always restful. If you've ever overslept and felt groggy, that's what they were dealing with every day. Constant cold, low light, low food, and more time lying in place meant dreams got stranger, deeper, longer.
The Earth, it seems, wasn't the only thing drifting into hibernation. Your brain did too. Scientists still debate whether Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens in colder climates entered states similar to torpor, reduced metabolism, lowered heart rate, and shallow sleep that preserved energy. It's possible. There are even signs in some burial sites that people may have died in curled positions surrounded by furs and buried with items that suggest they were prepared for a long final sleep.
You reach a cave again now, this one different from the others. It's deeper, tighter, sealed at the back with stones to trap heat. Inside, a small group is wrapped in layers of hide and grass, barely moving. They're not sick. They're hibernating humans in a way, conserving energy, letting their bodies slow down while the cold outside takes over. It's quiet, so quiet in fact that your own heartbeat sounds loud.
You lie down near the entrance and feel it, this sense of being tucked into the earth, as if the planet itself is bedding down for a long rest and you're just one of the creatures sleeping on its breath. And here's your oddball Ice Age fact for the night giant beavers once roamed the colder parts of North America. As big as black bears. They probably slapped their tails just as loudly. Now imagine trying to nap with that thudding next to your shelter wall. The Earth's long naps, these glacial cycles, weren't peaceful, but they were powerful. Ice advanced, oceans retreated, land bridges opened, letting animals and people cross into new continents. And with every shift, sleep had to evolve. Light patterns changed. Food became scarce. Night lasted longer. And still, we found ways to close our eyes. Some humans used sun-tracking stones to mark the shortening days. Others developed seasonal migration patterns following the warm. And in the darkest months, families likely stayed indoors, told stories, and let sleep wrap around them like a second skin. You're drifting now, curled against a cave wall, warmth from a buried ember licking your back. Outside, wind shrieks across ice, but in here, it's quiet. Earth is sleeping, and so are you. The landscape changes again, not slowly like the glaciers, but all at once like someone flipped the biome switch in a video game. The cold lifts, the air thickens, the wind shifts. You're standing now in a wide open plain, but it's not dry, it's lush, green as far as the eye can see. There are trees, yes, but scattered like islands, and everywhere the sound of life, buzzing, honking, thundering. You blink. This is the Sahara Desert, only it's not a desert, not yet. 300,000 years ago, this vast space was a green savanna. Rivers wound lazily through valleys. Lakes glittered like spilled silver bowls. Herds of gazelle elephants, giraffes, and even hippos lounged in the shallows. You're not hallucinating from heat stroke. This was real. And now it's almost forgotten. This region went through cycles called the African humid periods, where monsoon rains transformed the desert into a paradise. It didn't just last a few years, it lasted thousands. Enough time for entire civilizations, prehistoric ones, to emerge and fade without a trace. And those people, they had to sleep too. But how do you rest in a world that's so alive it won't shut up? You lie down in the tall grass, watching clouds drift across a sky bursting with heat. There are no artificial lights here, no buzzing of cities. But it's not exactly peaceful. Crickets, frogs, the distant roaring of lions who now call this green Sahara home. Yes, lions in the Sahara. They were here first. Even the birds are louder here, and weirder. Their calls sound like laughs, arguments, badly tuned flutes.
And the bugs, don't get us started. You turn onto your side and spot a family sleeping beneath an acacia tree. Their skin glows in the low afternoon sun. The children are limp, sprawled in sleep, with dust on their lips. The adults sleep lightly, because in this landscape everything is seasonal, including sleep. In hotter climates, diurnal sleep patterns evolved. That means naps in the heat of day, full sleep during cooler nights, and sometimes even seasonal rest cycles, where people simply slept more in the wet season and stayed more active in the dry. Your internal rhythm adjusted to the environment, not just daily, but yearly. And now scientists are finding evidence that our genes still remember. People in tropical regions may show different melatonin rhythms than those in polar or temperate climates.
Our epigenetic clocks are tied to the Earth's rhythms, far more than we admit. You sit up and swat at a fly. Too late. It bit you. Here's your slightly upsetting science snack for the day. This version of the Sahara was probably home to ancestral mosquitoes that didn't just buzz, they carried early forms of malaria. That's right. Even when the desert bloomed, it had drama. And still, people slept. They dug shallow beds in the earth, lined them with grasses, built windbreaks from woven reeds.
Some even constructed elevated platforms to sleep above the reach of crawling insects. Primitive beds, the beginning of furniture. You wander toward a reed hut. Inside, you find a sleeping woman with her arm draped over a baby. Nearby, a bowl of burning herbs smokes gently, maybe to mask their scent from predators, or maybe just to calm the nerves. Some plants, even then, were used for their sleep-inducing effects. Think about that. Before science, before language, before agriculture, humans were already experimenting with pharmacological sleep. Crushing leaves, burning bark, smearing roots on skin. Scientists still debate which plants were used where, but recent residue studies suggest even Neanderthals may have used chamomile or yarrow, both of which have known calming properties. Even in prehistory, someone out there was basically saying, "I can't sleep.
Maybe if I boil this flower." And now, surrounded by this green abundance, you start to understand something strange. Too much life can feel just as dangerous as too little. The predators are well fed. The insects are thriving. The air itself feels heavier or rich with pollen and humidity and the scent of blooming things that don't care if you're allergic. It's beautiful and overwhelming. Sleep here is earned, not taken.
It comes after exhaustion, after movement, after foraging, after running. And when it comes hard. You curl beneath a tree, now feel the rough bark press against your back, and let your eyelids fall. Birds screech. A beetle climbs over your hand. The wind brings laughter from the next camp over. And still you fall asleep. Because this earth, in its lush, wild glory, has room for dreams too. Even in places where deserts haven't formed yet. Even in green places that will one day turn to dust. You sleep. Because humans always have. You wake to a glow. Not sunlight, not fire. Something softer, stranger. You squint and see it, pale green light drifting across the forest floor. Not strong enough to guide your way, just enough to feel seen by something fungal. You're surrounded by giant mushrooms. Welcome to the woods of 300,000 years ago, damp, dark, and very weird. The trees here are tall but sparse, draped in moss and lichen. But it's not the trees that steal the scene. It's the fungi. Some of them tower over you, wide-capped and spongy. Others glow faintly in the shadows, bioluminescent, like organic lanterns left by a species that doesn't care what you think. And they're not alone. All around you, the forest pulses with chemical communication. The mycorrhizal network, that fungal wood wide web, is hard at work. Beneath your feet, roots and mycelium are sending signals. Nutrients, warnings, maybe even bedtime stories. Because here's the thing, trees respond to darkness too. At night, many trees let their leaves droop slightly, their internal pressure dropping in a kind of plant rest state. Not quite sleep, but not quite alert either. And some scientists argue that fungi may play a role in synchronizing these slow rhythms underground, a kind of forest-wide pulse. And in this pulse, you sleep, because you're tired, because it's dark.
Because this surreal woodland, glowing like a fantasy novel backdrop, feels oddly safe. Just weird enough to relax in. You lie on a bed of moss cradled between a mushroom the size of a stool and a log so soft with rot it exhales spores when you breathe on it. And yes, that's probably bad for your lungs. But right now, you don't care. The light is just right.
Here's a curious fact. Certain fungi emit bioluminescent light as a form of spore dispersal strategy. Insects are attracted to the glowland and carry the spores elsewhere. Some scientists still debate whether this bioluminescence evolved as a defensive signal or purely to game the bugs. Either way, your ancestors saw this glow too.
And maybe, just maybe, they thought of it as spirit light, the breath of the forest, the presence of ancestors, or just something magical that said, "You're allowed to stop moving now." So they did. They huddled in small shelters or curled at the base of hollow trees, watching the mushrooms glow, watching the shadows flicker, listening to the low rustle of beetles and the impossibly slow yawning of trees. And they slept. You do too.
But before you drift off, you notice something else. Something almost silly. A cluster of tiny frogs sitting in a ring, basking in the glow of a mushroom. Not hopping, just sitting. Like an audience. Like they know something you don't. You're not sure if they're real or part of your dream. Scientists today still explore the idea that bioluminescence might affect human psychology. We know that soft-coloured lighting, especially green and red spectrums, can alter brainwave patterns and support REM sleep. It's possible that prehistoric environments like this one naturally enhance dreaming. Imagine dreaming in a world where light came from fungus, not electricity, where there was no sharp white glow, only the soft shimmer of rot and rain and old breathing soil. You breathe in. It smells like wet bark and a bit of decay. Not unpleasant, just honest. Another odd fact. Before you go fully unconscious, some modern mushrooms contain compounds that suppress nightmares. One theory suggests early humans may have accidentally discovered this by trial and error, eating or burning fungi that made sleep calmer, deeper, or stranger. You roll onto your side. Something furry nudges your shoulder. A shrew, maybe, or something less classified. It leaves you alone. Because right now, you are part of the forest. You're one of the sleeping things, glowing things, dreaming things. And as your breath slows, the mushrooms continue their slow, silent business. They don't care if you're human.
They care that you're still. Still enough to let the earth whisper to itself again. Still enough to let the dark be dark. Still enough to dream in green. When you wake this time, it's because your stomach growled louder than the nearby river. You're hungry.
Of course you are. Because here's the thing. Nobody likes to admit about sleep in the ancient world. It wasn't just shaped by the sun or the stars. It was shaped by hunger. You sit up slowly, brushing crumbs of dried leaf and moss from your cheek. The forest is still damp, still glowing faintly in pockets, but brighter now. The day has begun. So has the hunt for food, for shelter, for time to rest. You stretch and start walking barefoot toward the scent of something sweet. Maybe berries, maybe a fig tree, maybe your imagination. And as you walk, you remember a truth passed down in your bones. Sleep was seasonal, like hunger. When food was abundant, you could sleep deeply longer, even luxuriously. But when scarcity crept in, when berries dried, herds migrated, and cold sank in sleep shrank, became brittle, interrupted, squeezed between periods of gnawing hunger and constant motion. Your ancestors didn't always sleep 8 hours. They slept when they could afford it. And oddly, your body remembers this. Studies show that when you're undernourished, your body enters a kind of hyper-alert state. REM sleep gets disrupted. Deep sleep fragments. You wake more often. Your dreams, when they come, are vivid, sometimes frantic. All part of your evolutionary alarm system screaming, wake up, go find food, or become food. You pause now, crouch beside a bush. Purple berries. You sniff. They smell like hope. You eat, and you feel something remarkable calm. Just a little, just enough for your brain to go, okay, we're not dying. Maybe now we nap. You lie back in the grass. The sun is high now, and the warmth on your skin feels earned. Somewhere nearby, a group of early humans is doing the same. They've eaten roots, insects, maybe meat, and now they settle under the shade of trees. Not because it's night, but because now is the time sleep works. Welcome to the midday collapse.
In hot climates, or during long daylight periods, our ancestors learned to split their sleep, one core sleep at night, and a smaller chunk, what we'd call a nap, during the day. It wasn't laziness. It was strategy. It kept the body cooler, the mind sharper, and the group slightly more patient with each other. You've done this too. The post-lunch fog, the heavy lids in the heat. Your DNA is whispering, take the nap. We've been doing this for hundreds of thousands of years, and when food is scarce, that nap disappears. You burn calories by staying awake, by moving, by not dreaming. Odd fact for the road. Some species of birds and marine mammals sleep with one half of their brain at a time. The other half stays alert. Scientists call it unihemispheric sleep. It's rare in humans, but during starvation, trauma, or extreme conditions, we can slip into something very similar, shallow rest, where the brain never fully lets go. Sound familiar? If you've ever tried to sleep while broke anxious or surrounded by noise, you've felt it. That half sleep. That limbo between rest and vigilance. You've inherited it from every ancestor who ever tried to nap with an empty stomach and a lion problem. But here's the miracle. Even in starvation, humans still find ways to sleep. Not because it's convenient, but because the brain must. Even short bursts help with memory problem solving and critically emotional regulation. So you lie here, belly half full, body stretched out, like a starfish on the forest floor, and you feel your system relax. Not entirely, just enough. Nearby, someone snores. Another human old, perhaps, dreams with their mouth open,
and their hand on their chest. You see their ribs rise and fall like slow waves. It's not pretty, it's not clean, but it's sacred, because in this harsh, beautiful world, sleep is not guaranteed. It's a victory. You close your eyes. The wind stirs the branches above. And as you drift again into that floating space between dreams and waking, you think, we slept through starvation. We slept through storms. We slept through extinction. Maybe that's our real superpower. Not walking upright, not tool making, not language. We sleep when we shouldn't. And sometimes that's what saves us. It's night again. But not the soft, mossy kind of night you remember from the mushroom forest. No, this one's sharp, dry.
The air has teeth. You're not in the lush savannas anymore. You're somewhere between grassland and open plain, where shadows stretch long and there's no water in sight. And somewhere nearby, something is watching you. You freeze, eyes scanning the dark. A breeze stirs the grass. Nothing moves. But you know. You just know. This is predator country. And out here, sleep is conditional. You lie down anyway. Because you have to. Because your legs hurt.
Because your eyelids weigh more than your fear. But even as you close your eyes, part of your brain remains lit up on edge. This is night vigilance, the evolutionary reflex that keeps one eye metaphorically open, just in case something with claws decides your dinner. You're not paranoid. You're correct. Because 300,000 years ago, the night wasn't empty. It was full of expert predators, creatures born for the dark, sculpted by evolution to thrive, while your kind slept. Let's talk about a few. First up, the saber-toothed cat. More than just a prehistoric Instagram model with overgrown canines, these apex predators had night vision far superior to yours. They stalked low and silent, their senses honed to the tiniest twitch in the tall grass. Then there were the dire wolves. Real, not just fantasy. Bigger, bulkier, and more cooperative than today's wolves.
They hunted in packs, surrounded prey, and likely timed their hunts for nightfall when visibility dropped and panic rose. Even the giant owls, yes owls, might have been hunting small mammals, possibly even human children in their sleep. Scientists still debate the reach of avian predators in prehistory, but talon marks on ancient bones tell their own quiet, terrifying stories. And yet, humans survived. How? Through patterned fear. Your ancestors learned the rhythms of predators.
Learn to predict them, avoid them, sleep in spurts, sleep together, create noise, smoke, fire rings, use high ground, sleep where the wind carried their scent away. And even now, your brain remembers. It's called the predator avoidance theory of sleep, and it suggests that our light, easily disturbed sleep patterns weren't a flaw, they were a defense system. You wake more easily than, say, a bear in hibernation. You flinch at unfamiliar sounds. Your REM cycles are segmented. This isn't broken sleep. This is survival sleep. And guess what? You still do it. Camping in the woods, hotel in a sketchy neighborhood, first night in a new house, lighter sleep, more vivid dreams, more waking, more startles. That's not anxiety. That's your inner hunter-gatherer whispering, be ready. Odd fact, researchers found that in groups of people sleeping together, like in some tribal communities, someone is always awake, even if it's not planned.
A kind of unspoken watch rotation emerges, natural, automatic, protective. You hear something in the brush now. You sit up, hold your breath. It passes. Just a deer. You lie back down. But you know better than to relax completely. Instead, you shift into a half sleep, a lucid drift where you're not fully conscious, but not truly resting either. Your body recharges just enough. Your brain processes just enough. And if something rustles too close, you're already halfway to running.
It's not pleasant, but it works. Sleep in predator country is not about comfort. It's about optimization. You take what you can, you adapt, you stay light, mobile, strategic. And when real rest comes, it's not during the night. It's after the hunt, in the heat of day, when the lions are digesting and the wolves are dozing. But for now, you drift. Your hand grips a stone. Your foot nudges the ash of a burned-out fire. And just beyond your vision, something watches, not ready to strike, just calculating. And you sleep anyway, because being afraid never stopped you. Because somewhere deep in your DNA is the understanding that sleep is part of the fight. It keeps you strong, smart, fast. And tonight, the wolves don't win. You do. Thunder. You hear it before you see the clouds. Not the short, sharp crack of a summer storm. No, this one rolls in slowly, like a beast dragging chains across the sky. You look up squinting into a sky that has changed colour. Dark yellow-grey, almost green at the edges. The kind of sky that tells your instincts to duck even before you see the first flash. And then it comes. Lightning. Forked. Violent. So bright it leaves a ghost image in your vision. And with it, thunder again.
But this time, you don't just hear it. You feel it. It rumbles through your rib cage, echoes in your teeth. Shakes the ground like a warning from a god you've never met. You are very awake now. But back then, 300,000 years ago, some of your ancestors may have dreamed through it. Or more likely tried to. Because storms didn't just interrupt sleep, they shaped it. There's growing evidence that electrical storms may have played a subtle role in the evolution of the human brain,
And not just through trauma or danger, but through patterned fear learning and long-term memory. Imagine being a child in a grass shelter, pressed between two adults while the sky shattered overhead. Your body remembers that. Your nervous system learns. It adjusts future behavior. Now amplify that across generations. It's called evolutionary conditioning. And scientists still debate how deeply things like thunder and lightning wired into our psychology.
but it's hard to argue with instinct. You're likely still hardwired to wake faster during a thunderstorm than during any other natural noise. And here's the kicker. Lightning may have helped make us smarter. We don't just mean metaphorically. There's a theory still debated that lightning strikes across early Earth helped break apart nitrogen molecules, releasing nutrients into the soil that boosted plant growth, and by extension, dietary complexity. More nutrients, more calories, bigger brains. Thanks, Zeus. You crouch now beneath a rock overhang as rain begins to fall fat, heavy drops that hit the earth with a smack. The smell is immediate petrichor, the scent of soil exhaling after months of holding its breath. You close your eyes briefly. It's loud but strangely rhythmic. Thunder. Pause. Rain. Pause. Distant animal shriek. Silence. It's not music, but it's something. And in moments like this, you understand why early myths often revolved around storms. They weren't just weather. They were events, dramas, messengers, maybe even dreams. Some scientists believe that lightning may have influenced the early agency detection instinct in humans. That is our tendency to assign intention or consciousness to natural phenomena. You know the voice in the wind, the face in the clouds, the anger in the thunder, And where does that sense of something more often visit us? In our dreams. You lie on your back under the rock, now curled in the fetal position. The storm is in full force. Water trickles down beside you. Somewhere behind the clouds, the moon hides. The stars have fled. But you're not afraid, because your body knows this too. Storm sleep is a real thing. That deep, heavy rest some people report during rain, especially when it's steady and low.
Thunder actually stimulates certain parts of the brain, like the reticular activating system, which regulates alertness and drowsiness. Ironically, in the absence of predators, storms may have made sleep easier. The noise drowned out distant threats. The chill in the air slowed metabolism. The darkness gave cover.
In some tribal communities today, long rains are still associated with communal sleep rituals, huddling together, telling stories, letting the storm wrap around the group like a sound blanket. You shift again. The stone beneath you is damp but warm. Lightning flashes. Your eyelids flicker and you realize your brain is mimicking the storm. Fast bursts of thought, bright flashes of dream, cracks in the silence followed by waves of memory and noise.
The electric brain, syncing with the electric sky. Odd fact, your brain produces about 20 watts of electrical power, enough to power a light bulb. During REM sleep, it may spike firing in patterns that resemble storm activity. That's right. Your mind is a thunderstorm, and tonight it's joining the others. As the rain slows and the thunder drifts west, your thoughts settle, your limbs go soft. And though the world outside is soaked and cracked and trembling, you are still, because even during lightning, even during fear, even during the noise of the gods, humans sleep. We always have. And when we wake, we remember just enough to call it a dream. The storm has passed. You can smell it in the air, wet stone, crushed leaves, ozone, the kind of scent that makes you want to breathe deeper, even though your lungs are still carrying the echo of fear. You sit up. The stars are back, quiet, patient, like they've been waiting.
And with them comes a strange, almost modern thought. What if we've been doing sleep wrong this whole time? Because here's the thing, your ancestors didn't sleep like you do. They didn't shut down for 8 hours straight, curl into a fetal position with a weighted blanket and a melatonin gummy. They didn't count sheep. They didn't binge watch half a series before collapsing at midnight. They did something else entirely. Something that scientists today call segmented sleep.
You walk now through the early dawn mist. The sky is turning cobalt. The air is still cool from the rain, but warming with each breath of the waking earth. You pass a small group curled around a smoking fire. One adult is up, poking coals, yawning, staring at nothing. Not groggy, just in between, because in the world before, electricity sleep came in 2 parts. The first sleep started after nightfall, a few hours of deep, slow, honest sleep, then wakefulness, for maybe an hour, sometimes 2. No anxiety, no insomnia, just a quiet pause in the middle of the night, known in historical texts as the watch. People use this time to think, to pray, to whisper, to make love, to check on the fire, to listen, to dream while awake. Then came the second sleep, often just before dawn, more dream-heavy, more abstract, more vulnerable. And here's the twist, this wasn't just a prehistoric thing. In fact, well into the 17th and 18th centuries, there are recorded references to first sleep and second sleep across Europe and other parts of the world. Monks, farmers, parents all adapted to this natural rhythm. It was only with industrialization, electric lights, rigid work hours, the tyranny of the 9 to 5, that we began demanding 8 uninterrupted hours and feeling like failures when we didn't get them. But your brain remembers the old way. If you've ever woken up at 2 or 3 a.m. and stared at the ceiling fully alert for no reason, you've experienced what sleep scientists now call bimodal sleep pressure. Your body shifting naturally, echoing its ancestral rhythm. And the good news that middle night wakefulness, it's not broken sleep. It's ancestral sleep. You sit now beside the embers of the fire, staring into them like they might blink back. The sky above is filling with light again, but the world is still half asleep. And in that space you rest, eyes open, heart slow, brain adrift. It's peaceful, it's real, it's yours. Here's your peculiar fact of the hour during the watch. Some early cultures believed dreams could be shaped, that by sitting quietly in the break between sleeps, thinking of what you wanted to dream, you could steer your mind when it returned to slumber. The first lucid dreamers, maybe, or the first psychologists working through fear and longing without needing a couch or a cold pay. Scientists still debate whether segmented sleep was universal or just common. But one thing's for sure, our ancestors weren't broken. They were aligned to darkness, to firelight, to the rhythm of a planet that didn't care what the clock said. You lie back again now, head resting on your arm, the fire warming your cheek. The second sleep is coming. You can feel it. Not rushed, not anxious, just next. And as your eyes flutter and your breath slows and the stars finally begin to fade, you carry with you not one dream, but two, because sleep isn't linear, it's layered, woven, alive. You're walking through ash, not fresh ash. This isn't the middle of a fiery apocalypse, but the quiet grey aftermath. The kind that settles like dust, thin and soft, covering rocks and the bones of trees. It's eerily quiet. Even the birds, if there are any, aren't singing. Something has ended here, something huge. And it didn't go out with a bang. It slipped into the dark while the world was asleep. You're walking through the long shadow of extinction. Maybe a drought that never stopped, maybe a disease, maybe a cold snap, or maybe humans your own kind pushed too far, hunted too often, slept too well through warning signs. All around you are the ghosts of animals that no longer exist. Massive ground sloths, elephant birds, cave lions, giant tortoises, and the ones we'll never even know about, those that disappeared without leaving a skeleton or a name. And here's the haunting part. Many of them may have vanished quietly, their final moments, unnoticed, because they died at night. Scientists studying extinction patterns note an eerie trend. Many large animals were nocturnal or crepuscular, active at night or twilight. They had adapted to the cooler, safer hours, trying to live around us rather than with us. But it didn't save them. Some may have been hunted in their sleep. Some may have perished slowly as their habitats dried or froze, as food vanished, as competition grew. You sit now beside a dry riverbed where nothing stirs, and you wonder what happens to sleep during extinction. The answer, it changes. When ecosystems collapse, so do the rhythms of everything. Predator-prey cycles, feeding times, breeding seasons, and yes, sleep patterns. Animals, humans included, shift to survival mode. You don't dream when you're starving. You don't enter deep REM when you're on the edge of death. Sleep becomes shallow, fragmented, or disappears entirely, replaced by wandering, watching, waiting. You lie back now on the cracked earth dust, rising behind your shoulders. Above you, the sky is still full of stars, unbothered, untouched, always watching. It's possible, just possible, that your ancestors witnessed species disappear one by one. Not in dramatic scenes, but gradually, subtly. Hey, we haven't seen that big cat lately. The herd was smaller this season. No birds came to the valley this year. Sleep carried them through these losses, carried you through them, because while extinction takes sleep, restores, it knits together frayed nerves, clears toxins from the brain, strengthens memory and emotion, healing you for a world that no longer makes sense. Odd fact, modern elephants, some of the smartest creatures alive, sleep less than 2 hours a day in the wild. Why? Predation, environmental stress, and constant movement. Yet they still dream. They've been observed, twitching, breathing deeply, entering REM, even during short bursts of rest. Even in the face of extinction, animals keep sleeping. They have to, and so do you. You turn your head to the side and see a pile of bones, something once massive, now hollowed out by time and weather. You don't know its name. No one does. But it was alive. It walked. It ate. It probably slept curled in grass like you. Now it's gone. And somehow you're still here. Your breath slows. Your fingers curl into dry soil. Your heartbeat settles into the planet's deep, slow rhythm. Because even as things die, the earth dreams on. And you're part of that dream. A fragment. A flicker. Still breathing. Still sleeping. Still moving forward through the silence. The stars haven't changed, but everything else has. And now you. You lie there in the dark, not in a cave or under a tree or beneath the open stars, but in your own bed. Mattress, pillow, maybe a fan buzzing softly, maybe a cat curled at your feet. The modern world hums quietly in the background. Electric orderly, ever on. But deep inside you is Earth. Not the one you know, the one you came from. Because Earth, 300,000 years ago, wasn't just your planet. It was your womb, your cradle, your first teacher, your original lullaby. And tonight, you've walked with it again. You've felt the dry breath of deserts before they existed. Slept beside mushrooms that glowed like dreams. Curled near Neanderthals and watched the moon stitch shadows across their faces. You've huddled against thunder-counted stars that no longer exist, and slept not for comfort, but for continuity. Because sleep, then and now, has always been the thread, the pause, the quiet yes between all of Earth's loud, dangerous maybes. You shift in your sheets now, and for just a second they feel like fur, or moss, or the hides of a long-gone beast someone once hunted with a stone blade and a whispered prayer. You breathe in the scent of your room, but your body remembers the smoke of ancient fires, the petrichor after storms, the quiet panic of rustling grass in the night. All of it is still inside you. The way you wake with a jolt at 3 a.m. That's an echo. The way you nap better after eating something warm, that's an echo. The way you reach out in the dark to touch someone's arm and fall back asleep, that's an inheritance. Sleep for you is no longer about survival. But your body never got the memo. It still protects you, alerts you, repairs you, hums ancient lullabies to the parts of your mind that never stopped living in the forest or the cave, or beneath the green Sahara sky. And here's a final odd fact. Modern humans still sleep in ways that baffle science. Why do we dream about falling? Why do we twitch? Why do we remember some dreams and forget others? Why do we wake up feeling sad from something that never happened? Scientists still debate it all. And maybe that's the point, because sleep isn't a puzzle to solve. It's a language older than speech. You don't need to understand it to believe in it. You just need to let go. So here you are, a creature of wires and weather apps and overcooked emails, lying quietly in the dark. And inside you, something older is breathing. The ancient Earth. The dreaming planet, still alive, still whispering. You are the dream. And tonight, you've finally come home. Tonight, you journeyed back, not just through history, but into the Earth's earliest dreams. You walked barefoot across ancient soil beneath stars that once guided migrations and beside fires that kept predators away. You slept in caves carved by water and memory, cradled by moss and stone, while giant sloths, Neanderthals, and saber-toothed cats prowled nearby. You saw a world before time was counted in hours. A world shaped by seasons, storms, hunger, and glowing fungus.
You slept with one eye open, just like your ancestors, half dreaming through lightning hyena laughter and shifting riverbeds. You remembered what it was to lie under a green Sahara sky, or beneath the long cold breath of an oncoming ice age. You saw mushrooms light the ground like constellations. You saw extinction slip in through the dark, and humans sleeping right through it. And through it all, you learned that sleep was never just rest. It was survival, communion, memory. Sleep was firelight against the void, a whispered song in the middle of a moonless watch, a biological act so sacred it survived volcanoes, droughts, wolves, and empires. And now here you are, warm, still modern, but not separate, still carrying the rhythms of a planet that taught you how to dream long before it taught you how to speak. So rest now. You are the last ember of a very old fire. Let it glow. Let it fade. Let it breathe. End of script. Good night.